Now, I've had a ton of great guests on this show in the almost 7 years that it's been active. But I want to tell you something. This next guest that I'm bringing to you guys has a history all its own. From Kansas City, Missouri, the home of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, please help me welcome Mr. Bob Kendrick, the president and the man in charge, and he's on the other side of the hotline right now. It is an honor, sir.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Tell me tell me about the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and how you became the president thereof. I am excited to hear this story.
Well, I tell you what, it is an interesting story in its own right because I started here at the Negro Leagues Museum as a volunteer way back in 1993. Who knew?
Wow.
Who knew? I had no idea that it would lead to one of the most gratifying career opportunities for me that I think I could have ever embarked on. I got introduced to the museum. The museum itself started in 1990, so we're celebrating 30 years as an organization this year. And we started in a little one-room office across the street from where the museum currently operates in a building called the Lincoln Building, the historic Lincoln Building, tiny little one-room office. And at that time, Brian, you had a number of Negro Leaguers, local Negro Leaguers who were still with us. And man, they literally took turns paying the monthly rent to keep that little
Wow.
office. And of course, with it, our hopes and dreams of one day building a facility that would pay rightful tribute not only to one of the great chapters in baseball history, but as now thousands of people each year are discovering one of the greatest chapters in American history.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm working at the Kansas City Star, the daily newspaper at that time, and I'm the senior copywriter in the Star's promotions department, which functioned as its in-house advertising agency. And I drew the assignment of promoting the museum's first ever traveling exhibition. That exhibition debuted in 1993 in a little storefront space right across the street from the museum. It is still touring the country today. As a matter of fact, it is on display at the Yogi Berra Museum right now. And of course, like most of everybody in this country, they're closed down due to the coronavirus,
Right.
but it's still touring. And we had some tremendous success. During the month of August of 1993, we drew some 10,000 people who came down to see that exhibition. And I think at that point, the officials here knew that we had something special. And the success of that promotional campaign that we did prompted them to ask if I would join their board of directors, which I did. And I served on the board for 5 years in a volunteer role, doing a lot of the marketing, PR, community relations, advertising things for the museum as a volunteer. And in 1998, I became the museum's first ever full-time director of marketing. And I served in that role for about 10 years. And then I left briefly in 2010 and came back in April of 2011 to become the museum's president. And now I'm in my 9th year as president of this great institution. So, as I mentioned, it has been one of the most fulfilling, gratifying things I think I could have ever done. I considered myself to be a baseball fan. And man, here was this entire chapter of baseball in American history I didn't have any idea about. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the story, and I fell in love with the amazing athletes who made this story. And I just wanted to learn as much as I could. And you know what, Brian? I wanted everybody else to know. I didn't want to keep it to myself.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted everybody else. I was hoping everybody else would be as excited and would feel the same way about this history as I did. And then, as I tell people all the time, I met the late, great Buck O'Neill.
Oh,
and I tell
wow.
people, once you're bitten by the Buck bug, it's a wrap. You
It
just want
is.
to be on Buck's team. Yeah, and so I feel so incredibly blessed that I got to travel all over this country with my dear friend Buck O'Neill, and while he was out there preaching the gospel of the Negro Leagues and the virtues of this museum to any and everybody who would listen, and I was there for the ride, man. And what an incredible ride it was, and now I get to carry on in his footsteps. I've picked up the baton from him, and trying to make sure that people are aware of this history that the legacy of the Negro Leagues will play on long after there are no more Negro League players alive to attest to the greatness of these leagues.
And it's so incredible that you share that story. And I have always been of the vote that Black History Month doesn't just occur in February. It occurs every month.
No.
And the Negro Leagues are just a small proponent of that. Here's a piece of knowledge that a lot of people don't get. I understand. I mistakenly used the word understand. Here's a piece of knowledge a lot of people don't realize. That's the correct word I need. Kansas City has kept homage to the Negro Leagues by their name. The Kansas City Monarchs became the Kansas City Royals. And they stay within that realm. In fact, for a while in the majors, there was a day where certain teams would pay homage to the Negro Leagues by wearing their uniforms.
Yeah. And they still do. They still do. The cities that had significant Negro Leagues history, places like Pittsburgh, Detroit, Atlanta, Cleveland, of course, here in Kansas City, they still do annual salute to the Negro Leagues.
Yep.
And that's something that we are genuinely excited about and appreciative of, because what it is doing now is introducing a modern fan base to the history and heritage of our sport. You know, with this year being the centennial, the 100th anniversary of the birth of the Negro Leagues, formed right here in Kansas City in 1920. And of course, the great Kansas City Monarchs were one of the original 8 teams that helped form the Negro Leagues in 1920.
Yes, indeed.
And so this was a really pivotal year for us. And we're hoping that we can salvage as much of this year-long centennial celebration that we were planning, you know, after we move beyond this coronavirus situation that we're all enduring right now. And so, but yeah, no, it's always wonderful to see the current day athlete put on that Negro League uniform.
Yeah.
And to wear those pants up high, like they did in the Negro Leagues, and wear them a little baggy like they did in the Negro Leagues, man, and maybe tilt that cap a little bit.
Maybe tilt the cap a little bit, yeah. Just to keep that time-honored tradition of the Negro Leagues alive in the way that the uniforms were worn. And I've seen lots of film on it. I've seen lots of pictures on it, but it's nothing like seeing the homage being paid live. And I've had a chance a couple of times to see it with my beloved Chicago White Sox when they donned the Chicago American Giants jerseys.
Yeah. They do a great job in Chicago as well. And of course, every year now they do the Double Duty Classic, named for the late, great Ed Double Duty Ratcliffe. And for those who may not have heard that name before, you know, number one, they had great nicknames in the Negro League.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, if you didn't have a great nickname, you probably weren't a good player.
Right.
And the great Ted, the great Ted Double Duty Ratcliffe earned his nickname Double Duty when the great sports writer Damon Runyon saw Duty catch a Satchel Paige shutout in the first game of a doubleheader, pulled off the catcher's gear, took the mound, and threw a shutout in the second game of the doubleheader, and said he was worth the price of 2 admissions. He was nicknamed Double Duty. He was nicknamed Double Duty until the day he died at age 103 in Chicago in 2005. And Duty was one of the great characters in the Negro Leagues. Man, he would inscribe on his chest protector, "Thou shalt not steal."
Right.
Yeah, he was as colorful as they can.
Oh, man. 2005 is unfortunately when he passed away. And in 2005, all my Chicago fans know my Southside White Sox won it all that year. So it was a celebration all the way around, not just of Double Duty.
Kenny Williams.
But
Kenny Williams, who was the GM of the White Sox at that time.
Yes, indeed.
And Yeah, we honored him with the Rube Foster Award. Rube Foster's another guy who lived and died in Chicago. He was
Yes.
from Calvert, Texas, but Rube Foster formed the Negro Leagues here in Kansas City in 1920. And so our Executive of the Year award is named for Rube Foster. And so Kenny is named the Rube Foster Award. And I'll never forget, he stood, when he accepted that award, he looked dead into the eye of Buck O'Neil and said, "We will bring the World Series champion White Sox to the Negro Leagues Museum next year."
Yes. Yes.
He
Yes.
delivered on his promise. He delivered on his promise. They are the first and only Major League team to bring all of their players.
Yep.
Now, we've had a number of players visit the museum, but never had we had an entire team. And Kenny fulfilled his promise to Buck O'Neil. And I'm sure there were some guys who didn't really want to come.
Yeah.
They didn't want to get out of bed and come down and do it. But once they were here, they were blown away. And one of my favorite memories, Jose Contreras, who was on that club
Yes.
from Cuba.
Yep.
From Cuba.
Yep.
When he walks into the museum, and we have what we call the Field of Legends, which features 10 life-size statues of Negro League greats who are in position, cast in position as if they were playing a game, and they represent the first group of Negro Leaguers to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the guy who is at the plate batting was his fellow countryman, the great Martin Dehigo.
Yes.
Now, Martin Dehigo nicknamed El Maestro,
Yep.
the master,
Yes.
because he could do it all.
Yep.
Played all 9 positions, played all 9 of them well. He is the only baseball player in the history of this sport to be enshrined into 5 different countries' baseball halls of fame.
Yep.
This brother is in the Mexican, Cuban, Venezuelan, Dominican, and in Cooperstown. And so when he walked in and saw his fellow countrymen standing proudly at the plate, he lit up. He lit up because I can be honest, you can't come out of Cuba and not know the name Martin Dehigo.
Right.
He was that good. But I don't know if he realized that he had played in the Negro Leagues, and that was probably the last person he expected to see
Mm-hmm.
when he walked in the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So now you've instantly bridged that gap because the Negro Leagues opened its doors to any and everybody.
Yes.
They didn't care what color you were, man.
Right.
All they cared was, can you play?
Can you play baseball? Absolutely.
That's it.
Can you play? And Jose Contreras is one of my favorite pitchers on that team. The fearsome force of
Yeah, man,
Contreras,
he had that
Burley.
Negro League swag.
Oh, yeah. Contreras, Burley, Garland, Freddie Garcia, the fearsome foursome. But what scared me about Contreras, and someone asked me this, if you could pick a pitcher that you did not want to face, for me, it'll be Jose Contreras. And here's the reason. I loved when he threw that forkball, but I would hate it when it became an out pitch against me.
Yeah. It was nasty. It was nasty.
Anybody who watched Jose Contreras, he was good when he was with the Yankees, but when he got to the White Sox in 2005, it was just on. He figured it out, especially second half of that year, and his fastball wasn't above like 93 or 94, but he knew where to place it. And having A.J. Pierzynski as his catcher was awesome because he got Contreras to use that fastball, and not only use his fastball, but trust his fastball. Because,
and I think that's the thing.
Yeah, because when Contreras came in, he always wanted to throw his forkball, which was nasty in and of itself. But A.J. Pierzynski got in his head and said, you got to know when to use that forkball. So as Ed Farmer said, and God rest Ed Farmer's soul, when he did a post-game interview with Don Cooper after they clinched the pennant in 2005, the fastball became the front pitch, the forkball became the out pitch, and that forkball was nasty.
Well, we had so much fun with them, man. Hawk Harrelson and everybody.
Yeah.
Ozzie Guillen was with us, and you know, when Ozzie left the Negro Leagues Museum, he went out and started really preaching the fact that every major league team should be required to visit the Negro Leagues Museum. It hit him in such a way. And that makes us all feel good in terms of the work that we're doing and the respect that is given to those players in the Negro Leagues. Man, I tell people all the time, these guys could play.
Yes.
it's this belief that if it didn't happen in the major leagues, then it didn't happen. And we're here to tell you, no, it happened, and it happened in glorious fashion.
Oh, yeah, it did. It did. Man, this has been such a delightful conversation. Bob Kendrick, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, Missouri. And I'm going to just put this out there. One day, I would love an opportunity to do a show from your facility in Kansas City when the time presents itself.
Oh, man, let's do it. When the time is right, you just let me know. We would love to have you here. And we're going to feed you some of that great Kansas City barbecue. I know it.
I'll tell you what, one of the times I was in Kansas City, someone warned me about the barbecue. I said, "Why are you warning me about the barbecue? Because you won't stop eating it." I said, "Man, please, I have a game." And I had a game that night. I was covering games for Chicago State University. I said, "I have a game. I'm not going to go to Kemper Arena, the venerable Kemper Arena. I'm not going to go to Kemper Arena full on barbecue. The barbecue's not going to do nothing to me." I couldn't have told a bigger lie that night, because when I got to Kemper Arena, and anybody who has eaten any kind of barbecue knows, if you have some real good barbecue, you're going to get sleepy really quick.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I had a barbecue meal, which included, God help me, homemade cornbread, and I had it at a place that was 3 blocks away from Kemper Arena. And I said, "I'm going to walk this off, and I'm going to be fine." I lied. I got to Kemper Arena. I walked in. I got situated. And the biggest mistake I made, and I'm having fun with this, folks, the biggest mistake I made, I sat down.
It's great stuff, man. And, you know how cities sometimes hype their food, and you find out, well, it's not really as good as they say. Nah, not with Kansas City barbecue.
Not
it
with
is the
Kansas
real
City
deal.
barbecue at all. Okay.
And this is a special place, so we would love, if ever the opportunity comes for you to do the show from here, man, we would absolutely love it.
Oh man, consider it happening then, folks. When the tour starts, because the tour is being put together, and we need some sponsors for that tour, drop an email to snowmaninthemorning@gmail.com. One of the places that we will stop is the Negro League Baseball Museum in Kansas City, but it's in its planning stages right now. We got to get some sponsors, and we got to put it together. That, my friends, is Bob Kendrick, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. It has been an honor and a delight to have you, sir.
Man, it's been my pleasure. And anytime you want to chat, please don't hesitate. We love this opportunity, and we hope that people will visit our website at nlbm.com to learn more about the museum. And, of course, if you're so inclined, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at NLBMPrez, Prez. And we connected on Facebook. I'm brand new to Facebook. I'm just learning it.
Yes, we did.
I'm learning my way around it, but we appreciate the opportunity.
I'd also love for you guys to be an advertiser of this program. I'm a big baseball rat, being from Chicago, and I'd love to have you guys be an advertiser of the program if that's possible.
Well, that's something that we will absolutely take into consideration, and you can send me some information detailing, and we'll take a look at it. And hopefully we won't be experiencing this shutdown much longer. We can get back to the operation of what we do here on a daily basis, and that's get people into this museum. And so,
absolutely.
Hopefully this, like I said, this coronavirus shutdown won't impact us much longer. So, we're looking forward to getting back in the swing of things.
Well, we got our first stop on our planned tour to help celebrate my personal and my company's 25th anniversary in broadcasting, and it'll be at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City. We'll give you all the details once they come together and once all the plans are put in place. Thanks a lot, my friend. I truly appreciate the time.
It has been my pleasure. No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Got more for you folks after this.